10-year-old boys' room. Boys only. Danger. Oh, no girls allowed in here. Wonder when that rule changes. It is pretty tidy though. I did that. One thing I couldn't tidy was the hole in the wall. Look at it. The evidence is everywhere. Miniature basketball. Yep. Basketball hoop on the back of the door. Yep. And of course there's the hole. Big enough for rodents and about the same size as a 10-year-old me, I reckon. Now, a hole like that that's gone right through the wall, you can't really patch with a filling compound and a scraper. Those filling compounds, they're good for patches that are about 40 millimetres and no more than 2 or 3 millimetres deep. Any more than that, and your filling compounds, well, they start to shrink a lot and they're very hard to finish nicely. If you've got big patches, especially like this one, that big, you're best off going with plaster. For patching plaster, you might have all the necessary items that you do need in your garage already, or you can go out and pick up a rapid repair kit like this one. Now inside, you'll find you get 2 little squares of plaster. You get some rapid patch repair powder that you need to mix up with water. You want to make this about toothpaste consistency. You got a scraper. It is plastic. If you've got your own metal scraper, that's probably better, but this will do the job. And a sanding block. Too easy. Now, first job is to grab your square, put it up over the top of the hole and trace around it. That gives you an area to cut out. Then, you cut it out. Now you could go old school, use one of these wallboard saws. They work like this. You just go in and out like that until you've punched a hole and then cut, away. Or the multi-tool, I know which I'd prefer. Now, what you want to make sure is that behind here, you haven't got pipes or power. Pretty important to check for that. Now look, there's no power points here. I'm pretty right with power. But still feel around inside. You can even break a bit of that out. Like that. Just so you can get your fingers in. Oh, hello! It's a water pipe. There is a bathroom next door, so you want to consider things like that. I'm going to miss that water pipe. It's about 30 mil behind the face of the board, so I'm just going to stay really shallow. If you're really nervous, do the whole thing by hand. You'll feel it before you cut through it. Oh, hello! Look at that. I've got my stud just down here. That's going to act as backing on one side of the patch, and well, there's my pipe, unscathed, beautifully. Now, I still want backing on the other side of this patch, top and bottom. That is what one of these squares of plaster is for. Just use half a cup of this stuff. That'll be enough to give you a bit of glue on this board that'll then stick it to the inside of your plaster wall. Now, a good tip to make sure that your patch stays flat is just to run a knife on the outside edge of your plasterboard. It just takes the furry paper off the edge and gives you a nice sharp edge all the way around. That way when you are setting plaster over the top, that furry paper doesn't stick up through the job and look pretty ordinary. I've left this for about 2 hours now. That's plenty. Could have left it for 4, could have left it overnight. Not too much now. You can always add more water. Toothpaste is what we're after. Let's see how we go. Fill that joint. I've given it a light sand, wiped it down with a damp cloth just to take the dust off. Now I'm mixing up coat number 2. Now you start with full pressure. As you get to the patch, ease off a little bit and then press back down. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, I'm no plasterer, but all you need is to go from nothing to a millimetre, maybe 2 at the absolute most, and then back to nothing again. It's just about adding pressure, taking it off and adding it back again as you go through the patch. Do that one way, then the other, and then leave it. Even if it is a little bit messy, you can tidy that up with sandpaper and a second coat later if you need to. There's no rush. Nasty little bits of rusted metal sticking out of your tile wall, and you need to get rid of them. So, first job is to have a go with needle nose pliers or the needle nose vice grips. These things are fantastic, but you need to be able to grab onto something. There is a little bit of a screw there, so we'll see how we go. Oh, it's very rusted. Just turn it gently. No, it's not going to work. It's almost crushed it. So I'm just going to drill in on the sides. I've got the hammer feature off because I'm drilling into tiles, and I always find that that percussion is no good for your tiles. It chips them. 3mm masonry bit is about the smallest you're going to be able to get. Gently as she goes. Basically what I am doing is just drilling the plug out from around the screw. That makes the screw go loose and fall out of the hole. I think we're close. Long nose pliers, now it's really loose. Ha ha! The winner! You could just put plugs back in there and a new soap dish holder, or you can go for a stick-on option. Pretty good for renters. Give it a good rub down, make sure you get any grime off the tiles. Grab the soap dish, sticky back. Sticky tapes are pretty good these days. The harder you press, the better the stick you'll get. And then there's one last little insurance policy to make sure the sticky tape lasts as long as possible. Just do the tiniest bead of silicone around the side and that top edge. And that is just going to shed water for you. The less water that hits the tape, the longer it is going to last. Then to smooth it off, you might not have soapy water handy, so you can just, excuse me, spit on it. Super lubricant. There we go. A little bit disgusting, but very effective. I reckon it might be time for a shower. Oh, yes! That is glorious. It looks good too. Plaster soap. The door to Uncle Kelvin's room just will not stay shut. Now, it really wouldn't be a problem, except we found our 1-year-old walking around with Kelvin's weekday pills, shaking them like a box of Tic Tacs. So, this door really has to remain closed. And the problem, if you look down here, is at the catch plate. You can see that the door has either leaned over, or maybe the house has sunk one side or the other, just to mean that this striker doesn't sit into the hole like it used to. You can see where it's just missing load, which means, well, we need to fix it. There's 3 very simple ways. The first way will take you for about 5 seconds, and it just involves looking up with a screwdriver. See the top hinge? If that gets loose, and they sometimes do, the door can just lean over a little bit, and that's enough to drop that striker so it doesn't hit the plate hole. Let's get up there and give these a tighten. Well, that's actually quite loose. You might find that's enough. When you shut your door, problem solved. Let's check it out. Nah. Now look down at the strike plate. This is option 2. You want to just lower that slightly. I'm going to back these screws off. Okay. Then I'm just going to run a knife along the bottom edge. Sometimes just tapping this down 0.5 millimetre is all you need. That'll get you out of trouble in seconds. Oh, did you see it? It just snuck down 1/4 millimetre. That's a beauty. That could be enough. Can you see how the screw is sitting higher in the hole? That means this plate has dropped down. The screw's actually hitting the top. As I tighten it, it's going to want to pull that plate back up. So I won't overdo it. That's come down maybe enough. Oh! Hang on a second. Kelvin's pills are safe. What a result. That's done that in just a few seconds. But if the door is sinking, if things are moving, houses do move, you might find that's only going to work for a month or so. So, if you want to fix it more permanently, this is what you do. Just remove the catch plate. Then, you're basically making matchsticks. If you don't have matchsticks, make matchsticks. The harder the timber, the better. Get something of a straight edge. I'm just using the edge of a chisel. Mark that line with your knife. Get your chisel on that line. Then once you've got a checkout for your catch plate to sit just that couple of millimetres lower, you need to fill up these old screw holes because your new screws are going to want to follow those old holes and just pull everything back up again. That's where your matchsticks and some PVA glue come in. Bang them in until they start to break up like that, and then just go flick up, flick down, and off they come. You've got a hardwood timber plug in that hole. And drill a pilot hole for your new screws. And that is looking good for a long time. These fancy pants sinks are all well and good until they're not. Push button plug indeed. Well, this one's busted, so I'm going to show you how to fix one of the fancy push button plugs pretty easily. Look at this guy, right? This is what I can see down there. Well, I can't see the mechanism. It's a little brass dooverwacky. You push down and it locks in. Push again and up it comes. That's as simple as it is. There's a spring inside here and this piece slides within itself. If you get it a bit dirty and a bit mucked up, which can happen pretty easily in a bathroom sink, well, it gets stuck and it doesn't work. So the idea is to take off the top like that and then grab this thing. You can see it's got a little flat edge on it, right? And that you need to turn so you can actually turn this whole unit out, get it out of the plug hole and give it a clean or replace it. Because the plug's stuck, the first thing you want to do is push it up from underneath. To do that, you need to take out part of the S-bend on your sink. Yeah. Oh, that's disgusting. All right. Grab yourself a mini screwdriver and a hammer. Get in from underneath. It's not for the faint-hearted. Look at this stuff. Oh, you might want plastic gloves for this. Screwdriver goes right in underneath the actual plug. So you're right up under the sink here and then, oh, there he goes, open. Take the top off the plug and then use vice grips to undo the piston, anti-clockwise. Oh, that is gross. Awesome, hey? 8-year-old daughter. Or maybe it's mine. At this point, you've got two choices. You can take the old piston up to the plumbing suppliers and replace it with a new one, right? Goes straight in, pretty simple. Costs around $20, fairly inexpensive. Or you can take the old one and try and clean it up. I'm using a water displacement spray. This stuff is more versatile than duct tape. You might find you can get this pretty clean enough without taking everything apart. As soon as you start taking screws off, well, there's a spring in there and you want to make sure things go back the same way they did come apart. Well, that is working a treat. Just saved 20 bucks. Don't need the new one. Bit of toilet paper around the screwdriver is a good little cleaning tool, actually. Down the sink. Let's just clear that out a bit. Tell you what, no wonder plumbers charge so much. Once you're all cleaned up and you're happy with the mechanism working again, well, you stick it back in. Screw it in by hand. Too easy. Then tighten up with the vice grips. And bung the lid back on. If you reckon you could fix a fancy plug, then give this video a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. But subscribe for regular maintenance tips to use around your place. Oh, timber! Or yucca. I mean, they start like cutesy little things like that one over there, but pretty quick. In just a couple of seasons, this one's gone bananas. And whether you like the foliage or not in a yucca, it's the root system that can really do you damage. So this one's got to go. Yuccas are designed by nature for life in the desert. Of course, here in suburbia, the root systems get really big, really fast. Oh, they're sharp. They're sharp. Tool of choice for getting rid of yucca foliage, bush saw. Even the biggest of yuccas will strip down pretty small. You will be surprised how much you can fit into the average green waste bin. You may even get yourself a helping hand if you're lucky. Thanks. Look at that, barely half full. Might even cut the grass later too. I always like to leave a good couple of feet of trunk. Gives you something to hang on to later on when you're getting rid of the roots. And then drill a series of holes around the trunk. You can drop some weed killer in. Concentrated, serious stuff, you know. Then walk away for a couple of weeks. Well, this one sizable root's been doing 2 weeks of dying, and now it's time to start digging. You can see it's really quite loose down the bottom. I like that. When I kicked this thing 2 weeks ago, I nearly broke my foot. This thing's ready to go now. I want to get into it with a shovel. A tarp on the ground beats a 2-year-old hands down for clean-up assistance later. A mattock is a huge help. Just to break through the stubborn stuff. You'll notice around the base of the rucker there's all these little spring out roots that go for miles, like metres and metres in any direction. So you might find that once you've got rid of the big guy, little yuccas start to sprout up in other places. Just keep an eye on it and knock them over as you need to. And just when you think you've got it, this is the spot where you usually, you go nuts and hurt your back. So don't do that. I've got something I wanted to try. I'm going to cut a little notch in the back, tie a rope around this thing and connect it up to the tow ball. If you are going to pull a trunk out with a car, safety is a very important part of it. Here we go. Oh, it's out, it's out, it's out. Yeah, how about that? There's a first. Just pulled the tree out with a car. That's fantastic. If you like my drive out yucca, give it a big thumbs up. There are a fair few roots to get rid of, but that's pretty easy once your weed killer's done its job. And look at the tarpaulin. What a great clean-up helper that is. Speaking of great helpers.
Hello!
And subscribe for free to get regular maintenance tips for use around your place. Hello, air conditioning intake vent. We all know air conditioners cost money to run. They do run a lot cheaper if the filter on the intake vent is clean. One look at this tells me, oh, it needs a little bit of love. It's easy to do, takes about 10 minutes. All you gotta do is undo this screw here, whip the thing down, whoa, pull the filter out. Blimey, just in the nick of time. That is filthy. Look at the fur on that thing. Right. The temptation here is to use a vacuum cleaner. Of course, if you hit this filter fabric with a vacuum cleaner at full power, whoa, it just tears it apart. No good at all. So put up with a little extra dust and mask up. Once you've tickled it enough with your brush, then you just dump it into some warm soapy water, get a cloth and give it a good wash. Nice and gentle though. You don't want to tear the fabric or push it out of the frame. Then just rinse it down with some clean. One very clean looking piece of filter fabric. Goes back in its slot. You want to do this about once every 6 months. Or at least check and make sure that your system's not clogging up. Then you get an aircon system that has easy breathing all year round. As for aircon units like this inverter system perched up on the wall, well, the process is pretty much the same. It's just basically popping the cover, removing the filter, just clicks out of place, and cleaning it gently. Pop it back in. Remember, an aircon system with a clean filter is much less likely to buckle when the going gets tough. Rightio, couple of top tips for reusing old paint. Now, the first thing is just to get the lid open. You'll find that generally it's been sealed shut by the paint. So what you got to do is get your scraper, a sturdy one, or a screwdriver, in the side and just hit that thing down there. If you have a look in there, you can see the colour. It's okay, it doesn't need too much mixing. Sometimes you'll see a black film over the top where the colour's really separated. In this case, it's okay. Now you could just mix it up with a hand paddle, but that can take ages if the paint has well and truly colour split. Or I prefer the paddle attachment for the drill. You do it in no time. Now that's pretty good. Once the air gets to paint, it starts to dry. So you're going to find that you might get little lumps all the way through it. And when you put it on the wall, those lumps are going to show up and ruin the job. The way to get rid of the lumps is pretty simple. Once you've got your colour right, grab a hold of these pair of stockings and then get the tin, wrap the stocking around the edge and pour the paint out. Oh, actually, whoa. You want to get a pair of man's second best friend on, latex gloves. Thank you, doctor. Now, oh, in it goes. Cool. What's happening here, it's just like a sieve. See it? Big ball of paint is lump free. Any lumps in the paint are caught in the stocking where they belong, and the rest of this stuff is ready to go on the wall. If you're not going to use all of the paint on the job at hand, now's the time to recontainer the stuff. So what you get, something with a lid. As long as you've got a screw top lid, you're laughing because you can seal that thing up. That gives your paint its best chance of surviving as long as possible. Now, just pour what you're not going to use into your jar. Oh, smooth like silk. That ought to be enough for me. Okay. Still not a drop on me. What you can do, if the jar is a little bit big, is get some cling film, push it right down in there, just taking a lot of the air out of the jar. Lovely. Because a picture tells 1,000 words, there's the colour on the top of the lid. So you know exactly what you've got when you want to use it next. Nice one. Well, looky what I found. This is hardwood, and it's from an old fence. These are the posts. Now down the bottom, where the posts are in the ground, well, it's all rotten. That looks pretty nasty actually. But most of the timber is in great nick. You can find this stuff on the side of the road, or through contractors and recycle yards. Putting together a workbench is not rocket science. In fact, it's pretty easy. What I want to do is start by cutting all my timber to length. The average bench height is 900 millimetres. I'm making my frame slightly shorter to allow for the height of caster wheels. Most circular saws have what's called a trenching feature. This one, you can see, the saw goes right down. If I activate the trenching feature, it only goes a certain depth, and I can change that depth to mean the saw cuts out only what I want it to. Now I want to take 25 millimetres out of each timber so that the other piece can lay over the top of it and house into it. With this type of joint, you can either make a series of cuts with the drop saw, hit the bulk out with a hammer, and tidy up with a chisel. With the chisel down like this, it's a lot harder to control because you tend to want to dig in. Like that. No good. Bevel up. More control. Or another method is to start with just 3 cuts across the timber. And then what you do is you just turn your piece on its edge and use your circular saw. That first part will just drop off, and then the second part you just chisel out. One goes over the other, bang! All of a sudden I've got a joint that is really quite rigid and quite strong. Time for assembly. You can check the squareness of your frames by making sure the diagonal measurements across opposite corners of the frame are equal. Once your frames are square, you can fix the corners. What I'm going to do is use these cup head galvanised bolts to join the pieces together. Now I'm just going to use an offcut of this joining rail to make sure that where I put my bolts doesn't interfere with where I'm going to have a checkout. The checkout in each corner is just to house a joining rail. The joining rails are what tie your 2 frames together. Once you're in your final location, assembly's pretty easy. Just attach the joining rails to your 2 frames with coach bolts. Make sure you remember clearance holes and pilot holes. It makes it a lot easier to screw into hardwood. Then finish up with your caster wheels. Once they're in position, flip that thing over. Geez, I'm very happy with the bench frame. Still needs a tabletop on it, but you get the idea. Look at this. Cost absolutely nothing. Well, it did cost a bit. Bolts, coach screws, and caster wheels. The rest, just some bloke chucking out his old fence. I said, thank you very much, chuck it on the back. Too easy. And it rolls. Right, to build this gazebo, we need 4 posts, and each of those posts needs to be standing plumb. Now you can check with your level, but sometimes it's also very helpful, and this is a good builder's trick, to check with your eye. Now you stand back and have a look down one edge of one post and line that up with the edge of another. Come with me, we go in, we come out, we go in, and you can see that the top of one post is meeting this one at the same time as the bottom. That means that your posts are in wind. If it was a big gap at the top and it was tight at the bottom, that's called out of wind, and that's no good. So it's always good once you've checked with a level to check with your eye to get it just right at your place. Lovely, mate. And again, happy both ways. If we were to put these 150 by 150 hardwood posts onto stirrups, well, those stirrups would act as a hinge point. And the posts would be quite hard to brace. But because we've dug down 600 into the ground, we've dropped the posts into that hole, and we've used the H4 treated pine subframe that we've already concreted in place as a holding spot. Once that concrete's in there, well, these posts are really going to brace themselves, and this whole structure will have a whole lot of strength. This timber may well be harder than Gran's ginger nuts, but it still benefits from a little bit of protection. So we've treated the base with an oil-based preservative. If you found this video at all helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for regular tips on DIY to use around your place. Kitchens do get growing pains. This one's only, what, 4 or 5 years old. Looks pretty good, but you could spend a couple of minutes just to align the cupboards. Adjusting kitchen cupboards is easy. All you need is a screwdriver and a few seconds of your time, in most cases. Now, have a look at your door first. There's a bit of a lean on this one. Look at it, touching down there. This one's touching down there. They need to move within the hole that they're in. Hello, it's the booze cupboard. No wonder it's falling over. Now, what you'll see up here are a couple of screws on the hinge. Now, this is a full overlay hinge. When it's off the door, it looks kind of like this. Now, the screw that's closest to you here, that'll fix most of the problems. You adjust that and it'll push the door side to side in the opening, either at the top or the bottom. It's a pretty good fix, that one. The screw at the back, well, you adjust that and it's pushing the door in or out of its opening. You really need to touch it. Rightio, you want to start by taking a step back and having a look at the door. I can see that it's sitting sort of crooked in the hole, so to fix it, I just need to push that bottom out. It should work. 1, 2, 3 turns. That's pretty good. When you're dealing with a lot of doors, it does pay to stand back and look at them all as one rather than just each door individually, because you'll find that there's a trend. You might get all small gaps along the top and you want to keep the same look across the whole kitchen. 1 or 2 screws every 5 years. 5 minutes of your time. Over here, we're creating something of a tiered vegetable garden bed. Now, I've got a veggie garden at home, and there is dead set nothing more satisfying than pulling food out of the ground at your own place and eating it. Treated pine has come a very long way. It wasn't so long ago that H4 treated pine was a pretty dirty word if you were talking about kids' playgrounds or anything to do with food. But now there is this stuff, ACQ treated pine. Now, the old CCA treated pine had arsenic in it, and that's really bad. This stuff, no, it's all non-toxic treatment. So you can use this in an H4 situation, in contact with the ground that is, and do things like make playgrounds, build a cubby house for your kids, or in this case, I'm doing a veggie garden. We've got a bit of drainage in the bottom. That's just blue metal. That's going underneath the soil, but underneath all of that is this, filter fabric. You see, there's joins here in the timber. If you don't have filter fabric over those, well, what happens is the soil, in heavy rain, bleeds out through all the joins and it comes out around things like concrete slabs or paths around your place. So the fabric keeps things neat, the blue metal adds to drainage, the soil gives the plant something to grow in, and then you just got to chuck in what you like to eat. Pretty easy stuff, really. I like to think of it a bit like Lego, a series of blocks made up into boxes sitting on top of each other. 100mm galvanised batten screws are great for holding pieces together. Then it is in with the soil, and then decide what you'd like to eat. There is heaps of great stuff to choose from too. How about it? You can have your very own private market of fruit and veg, and save a bundle on grocery shopping. If you do like free veggies, give this vid a thumbs up, and if not, thumbs down. But if you subscribe, you will get more tips on making the most out of your place. When you're drilling into hard timber, you'll find as you push the drill bit in, it gets stuck and doesn't want to go any further. What you need to do is pull the drill bit out and then go back in again. You can see that each time you go in, you get a little bit further. The drilling's very easy, but as you pull the drill bit out, the timber that's sort of stuck into the drill bit will free itself up and allow you to go further. Spotted gum's a really hard timber, but it's made to look pretty soft by a drill bit when you come out and go back in again and again until you get to the depth you want. Plaque screening. This is getting attached all the way along these three battens. 1, 2, 3. That's going to the end, and then you can see it's going to come across. That's where the bins go. There's no room for rubbish in this yard. Well, there is. We're going to put it up there and hide it behind the screen. Because these fences are made of plastic or screens, they move a fair bit when it gets hot and gets cold. So you need to drill fairly large holes. Look at these ones. That's a 10mm hole for a normal 8-gauge screw. It just allows the plastic to expand and contract and move around without cracking it later on down the track. How's it look? Yeah. Because these holes in the plastic have to be so big, well, the heavier screws, they just pull straight through. That's why you need to use washers. But there is an advantage to this, and that is, once you've driven the screw, you've got a little bit of room that you can move the plastic around. Should you not have it perfectly plumbed to start with, you can make minor adjustments. All right, now, because of the plastic and that expansion that I talked about, you need to leave a 10mm gap between each panel. Top and bottom, righto. And then, use a straight edge to check that the height of one, come down, is the same as the next one. Pretty easy, really. Another important thing to notice is that these battens that we're attaching the screens to have been painted the same black as the screens. That way, when the screens are in position, well, the battens sort of disappear and it improves the whole look dramatically. Pre-made screens are really quick to put up and they can make a huge difference to the look of your yard. If you like what you've seen, thumbs up and subscribe to get regular maintenance and DIY tips for your place. Regrinding chisels. You're generally going to find that you need to regrind a chisel the day you get it back from the mate you loaned it to. Look at this one. Bang. 1, 2. Thanks very much, Steve-o. That's a beauty. Regrinding doesn't have to be a chore. You can do it quickly and easily without ruining your chisel by following a couple of basic steps. These grinding wheels spin pretty fast, and because the chisel's so thin at the end, it builds up a lot of heat in that steel and actually changes the temper of the steel, which makes your chisel brittle. You don't want to do that. You basically cut the divots off by going in square onto the grinding wheel and grinding that chisel back so you've just taken the chips out. You'll find you've got a fairly thick front edge. Then you go in at the angle and gradually work back to sharp again. You want to have a cup of water on hand at all times. That's just to cool down your chisel. You dip it in there regularly as you possibly can to keep the steel cool. That way you grind, 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 heat it up, then dip. Grind, 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 heat it up, then dip. Once you are happy with the grind on your chisel, you still need to hone it to get it ready for use. You can use a sharpening stone, or I've got a great video on how to hone a chisel using sandpaper. Real cheap, real quick, real easy. Time for a U-Beaut household hack for putting a bit of sharpness back into your home, whether it be for the chisels in your shed or the knives in your kitchen. This takes just a couple of minutes. It's real easy too. Look at this thing, chef's knife, right from the kitchen. That is rubbish. please. Now look, don't go testing knives on your hands at home, that'd be silly. You probably know if your knives are blunt, and if you want to check, use a tomato. It's a great testing fruit. Tomato, whatever you want to call it. It shouldn't have to work that hard. You want to just be slicing straight through these things. Now that's all right if you want crushed tomato, but I want nice thin slices. So this needs to be sharpened, and a great way to do it is with wet and dry sandpaper. Now this is 1200 grit. You buy that down the local hardware, $1 a sheet. If you're unlucky, maybe cheaper. Just tape it to the edge of your bench or any hard flat surface. Then add some oil. Spread it over the paper. Then, just like a chisel, you want to find that honed edge there, and that's where you want to sharpen. Turn it over and do it again. The other way. If you go too steep, all you're doing is flattening the blade. You don't want that. You want it almost flat, up to the honed bevel, and then bang. Take the oil off with a rag. Carefully. It's sharp now. And perform the ultimate test. Come here, tomato. Oh, come on, that is fantastic. Oh, I just want to slice it all. Oh, and again. Oh, and again. That is brilliant. Before, after. I know what I'd prefer on my sandwich. Now for the chisels. For something like a rusty chisel, I want to start with something more coarse than that 1200 grit sandpaper. So I'm going for 240, just to rip the rust off. Now, if you have a look at your chisel, you see this one's really flat across the top. That's good. It means I can just hone it on the sandpaper. If you had divots out of there, well, then you need to go to the grinder. I've got a great video on grinding chisels that you can check out. But look at this. It's not cutting anything. So, straight to the sandpaper. Bit of oil. And grind away. Now you'll notice the flat side stays right down hard on the table. Look at the colour of that already. Wipe it off with a rag. That is looking pretty good. You don't want to hone your chisel sharp on this coarse paper. You just want to take all the rust off. So do that on both sides. Now you're ready to hone it real sharp on that finer paper. Go the flat side. Then turn it over. Go to that ground angle and then slightly beyond it to your honing angle. You can see there, the ground angle hasn't actually touched the paper. That little couple of millimeters at the end, that's your honing angle. And that's what we've really sharpened up. That is a beauty, look at this. I like it. How about a haircut? Wow. That's awesome. Now, with just a flat surface, some sandpaper, tape, and a little bit of oil, you can get every cutting tool at your place razor sharp in minutes. If you are cutting into any sort of timber, especially sheet material, it's quite helpful to have the whole thing up on a bench, but you want to look after the bench you're cutting on, especially if it's your outdoor table or something like that. So I keep these gluts, spacers, blocks, call them whatever you want. They're basically just a stick of timber with two smaller pieces attached to the bottom for stability that I lay on the bench. Then I just grab the piece I want to cut and it's well clear of the table below. And away I go. The saw blade stays well off the table and I stay out of trouble. Now, if you are cutting right through a piece, it can be helpful to have a third one of these. Like that, so that when you finish your cut, one piece doesn't fall down and jam onto the saw blade, which causes real problems. It's a pretty simple solution to protect your table and make your DIY life heaps easier. For your more regular, everyday cutting of bits and pieces, there is what is called a bench hook. Now you can see there's one piece of timber attached to the top side of a sheet of ply. This is just an offcut. Any sort of sheet material will do. On the other side, there's another piece. The two are kind of opposite. One provides a hook for the bench. The other one provides a backing, something to push your timber against to hold it steady while you cut. Use the end of that block as a guide for your saw if you need to. The piece is cut to length. The dining room table is unmarked, and that is a bonus. Now, for more tips and ideas on DIY around your place, subscribe to the channel. You get regular updates on when new videos go online. They've been around for centuries. They celebrate dance, spring and summer fun, the maypole. And for the impact they give your backyard, they've dead set got to be one of the easiest DIY projects going around. You put one of these up at your place at your next party, it's an instant conversation starter, and the kids, well, they are going to remember it forever. Now for your maypole, you're going to need a pole, aren't you? You could use PVC pipe, but that's going to cost money. I went down to a carpet supplier, got one of these for free. The cardboard tube from inside the roller carpet. Perfect. The guy had heaps of them to give away. I'm painting up the pole in a neutral colour. I've gone with grey because it's a really good colour underneath bold colours, which is where the ribbon on your maypole comes in. Once you've painted the maypole, you're going to need something to attach all of your ribbons to. It's called the crown. This is it. It's a decorative piece and it goes up at the top of the maypole. To make up the crown, I'm cutting up some hardwood trim into 4 pieces of equal lengths. Then cutting notches into both ends of each piece that gives me a position to tie on the ribbon and also helps stop that ribbon from sliding off the end. Now I'm drilling a hole through the centre of each of those 4 pieces for a machine bolt that with a little bit of glue will lock those pieces together in a wheel shape to create my crown. I've cut some little notches in the top of the maypole just so that when I stick my crown on, well, the notches, they locate it so it doesn't slide around all over the joint when the kids are running around the outside. And just to make sure of it, I've got some duct tape. Is there anything this stuff cannot do? Beautiful. How good is it? Now the smart money is on tying your ribbon to the crown before it gets up 3 metres in the air. I've got 8 prongs here for 8 runners or dancers. Keep in mind you want your ribbon to be at least twice the length as the height of the pole. Now to give this maypole a bit of backbone with star pickets, and you want the base of the pickets at the same diameter as the inside of your pipe. At the top, lean them out slightly, then drive them in. What that does is creates pressure because you've got to pull these together to get the pole over the top, and then they pull out like that. Now every good crown needs a little bit of decoration. Flowers, perfect. Now, for a little bit of thigh power. Yeah, hook it onto one side, squeeze in, maybe use your hand if you can. Ah, that's got it. And then squeeze as the pole slides down. Easy. Oh, this is good. Look at the pressure on it. Whew. They're spreading apart, holding that thing up nice and straight. You know, just got to find the kids. Shouldn't be too hard to do. G'day, I am Rob Palmer and I'm going to show you how to get all your pictures hung at just the right height. Have a look at this one. Great picture, but hung too high. It's right up here and I'm a tall bloke. If I was average height, well, I'm looking right up at the ceiling almost. So, the rule of thumb is to make sure the centre of all your pictures is down here at eye level. One blank wall, one picture. Now to get the right position for the hook. First you want to measure to the centre of the painting, 420. Then measure from that centre to where the hook meets the string, 185. Write it down straight away. The width of this wall space is 1100. The centre for my painting, 550. Marked at eye level. Then measure up that 185 millimetres, make a mark, and that is exactly where your hook should go. There it is, the centre of the picture right there at eye level. And that is how you get the right height for your picture hook and the perfect positioning for your painting on the wall. G'day, I'm Rob Palmer and ooh, that stinks. Oh, look at them, there's thousands of the little things. Black fly larvae or maggots. You don't want that in your compost. I don't. So I want to get rid of them. How do you get rid of maggots in your compost of growing without using pesticides or chemicals that are going to ruin the compost? It's easy. With lime. I found hydrated builder's lime works beautifully. All right, here it comes, boys. Where'd they go? They're still there, they're just hiding below the surface. Hide from this, fellas. Oh, yeah, okay. Now I'm just gonna turn it over. They don't like it. They don't like the lime. Oh, have a look at them. Once you've turned that lime over a little bit, get a bit more in there. Take that, maggots. I hope they die peacefully. You want to give your compost a good turning over with a fork to expose all those little maggots to the lime. It still stinks, but there's a good few hundred dead in there already. That should work pretty quick. Then you want to get some brown matter, leaves, paper, straw. I'm using sugarcane mulch, it's what I use on the veggie patch, and mix that in. It dries it out a bit. You see the maggots, their waste might be full of nutrients, but gee, it is wet. Mix that sugarcane mulch in, really dry things out. That's going to help it. Ooh, smells better already. Still not great, but I'm going to leave the lid off for a couple of days. That'll help things dry out. Then I'll check it again. I might need to repeat the process if I haven't killed everything. Then we'll see how it looks in a couple of weeks. Well, it's been some time. Let's have a look at that. There are no maggots at all, which is a big bonus. Doesn't smell half bad either. Plenty of dry and wet organic matter and lots of air in there as well. Most importantly, no meat and no dairy. That's what brought the maggots to start with. Oh, look at that stuff. That is a beauty. If you're a fan of a maggot-free compost, give this a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. But if you do subscribe, you get plenty of free DIY tips for maintenance at your place. I do love a veggie patch, but I'm not the only one. Who is your mortal enemy? Birds and possums. Birds and possums. So I'm going to show you how to protect your vegetable patch, you're welcome, from birds and possums as cheaply as possible, starting with tomato stakes. 25 by 25 bird netting. This is 4 by 4 metres. Pair of scissors, your Bosch 18 volt cordless drill, roll of duct tape, some rags, and screws. I like to use 50mm treated pine self-countersinking 8-gauge screw with a Phillips head tip. These are the most versatile DIY screw you could probably have in your house. The plan is simple and real easy to do. You just want to drive tomato stakes in along the garden bed edge, about every metre or so, on both sides if you can. Of course, in this case, I'm against a fence, so I'm going to use 1 tomato stake, or 3, as a batten. That's going to allow me to give a starting point for where I can hook on my garden netting. That goes over the tomato stakes and down to the garden edge. Easy. You may not even need to hit them down. Garden bed material is usually pretty soft. Because the stakes are made of hardwood and they're skinny, you want to pre-drill them before you screw so they don't split. And then just screw in. The celery's looking real good. So's a rocket. You want to get your battens at about the height of a fencing rail. That way your screws won't stick through the palings on the other side. You can tell where the rails are, if they're not on your side of the fence, by the nails in the palings. Don't screw your battens in all the way right now. You want to leave about a finger spacing behind them so that you can tuck the netting over the back, then screw them off to hold the netting in place. I've folded the netting over a couple of times. Now I can just cut with my scissors right down the centre for 2 strips. The corners here, real sharp, and you don't want to be tearing your netting, so I've got a little bit of rag. That's just going to go around the top like this. Whoop-de-doo. No one's tearing anything on the top of this stake now. Beautiful. So it stays there. I'm just going to wrap it up with a little bit of duct tape. Duct tape does everything. Oh, that's good. Now tuck your net in behind the batten. As you're screwing the batten off hard to the fence, make sure the net's out of the way of the screw. Last thing you want to do is tear the net at this point. I'm simply using those same treated pine screws as anchor points for the net to hook onto, about 100mm below that top edge of the garden bed. Once you've trimmed up the excess net from down the bottom, you can just tidy it up by pulling the net back onto those screw heads, and that is it. Far out. If I was a possum, it's a bit like window shopping, really. You can look all day long, but you cannot touch. G'day folks, this is my mate Rach. She has her own YouTube channel, Rachel Lee A, which is fantastic too. It's all about lifestyle, design, and my nighttime routine has just been refined.
Good stuff.
Now, the reason Rach is in the shed with me is because you've got a little bit of a design issue that you want to hand with.
Yes, I am looking for some desk organisation. I'd like a little cubby, little shelf that is portable, but I need to store my stationery and my books and just kind of clean the space up, but still have room to work.
You know, drawings are a massive help when you're doing stuff like this because you can actually make sure that you get all the stuff at your first visit to the hardware. You don't have to go back and you can see what you are building as you go. Very helpful.
Exactly, and the drawing is also a really good way to make sure you're going to fit all your belongings in. It's kind of like a custom design for just you and everything that you own.
Yep. You're not building this for your sister.
Nope.
Unless you are. And then use her stuff. We're going to get you started straight into this. You are cutting.
Sounds good.
See this?
Yes.
It's a bench hook. This thing is unreal. It means you can cut stuff on your dining table and not get in trouble for it. Because not everyone has a workbench.
Exactly.
And not everyone has a place where they can just build something. So to have a place where you can just cut things up, here is your handsaw.
Thank you.
Just put the saw on the waist side of the line, okay? And use the whole saw. It's there to help you. The teeth will do the cutting.
Okay, cool.
Nice. You're doing a beautiful job here. Look at this. Far out. You can share and done this all your life.
Alright, so I'm just placing in all of my shelves to make sure it all looks right and everything's fitting the way that I want.
Magnificent. And just to make sure that all the shelves are at the same height, a great tip here is just to grab your outside two pieces and mark up the shelf heights on those at the same time. That way you're guaranteed that your shelves are in the same line all the way through the unit. I've marked up the centerpiece and I'm cutting out a section from between the top two shelves. That's going to allow a door that's going to slide between the shelves on either side of this centerpiece, creating a secret box on one side or the other. Yep. Okay, we're going to paint everything except for that front edge that you want to keep in a timber finish.
Yep.
All right, so what I do is I keep a fair bit on the brush, but then as I get towards the edge, I just start to go out.
Yep.
Like that only. You never go into the corner because you'll drip down the side. I always just go out like that.
Yep.
But then when you finish, you do what's called laying off.
Yep.
Where you just do that.
Okay.
And so you've got a clean edge all the way down. You may get minuscule bits of paint on the timber, but you can always just sand that back later. As long as you don't have heaps on there soaking into the end grain, you'll be laughing. Rightio, Rach, it's pretty boring watching paint dry, so...
The paint's dry.
Yes. Now I've done something when you weren't looking. Feel that top side.
Yeah.
Kind of rough, right?
It is. It's a bit rough.
Feel this side.
It's nice and smooth.
Too right it is. That's because after 2 coats of paint, I've gone like this. 1, 2. This is a professional painting tip. It's about 180 grit sandpaper, so it's very fine. You don't want to scratch up the paint. 1, 2 off the other end. Now feel that.
Wow, that's so smooth.
Amazing difference,
Yeah,
hey?
that's a big difference.
So I would like you to do that on all these pieces that we've painted.
Yep.
I'm going to mark up the shelf positions on each one, and then we'll also sand off that top edge. Silky.
Yeah.
Right, you can't just blink your eyes and have a sliding door to a secret compartment, can you? So the door that we've got slides inside that checkout that we cut before. Now it needs to run on something, and I've got little rails. That's this stuff, 6x6mm beading. That is going onto the shelves. Now the distance here from the outside edge to the inside of the checkout is the same distance that you want to apply the beading to your shelving. Mine's 20mm back. It gives the door room to slide. Rightio, Rachel, time for assembly. Now, we're going to use old school PVA glue, which is great for timbers, and nails. To make nailing easy for anyone, even if you've never done it before, pre-drilling pilot holes is a huge help. It just means that when we drive that nail, it is going to drive exactly where we want it and hold until the glue dries. The glue is the strongest part. Wherever possible, you want to nail vertically. It's much easier than trying to nail on the side of something. It always finishes with a punch. Okay, now in order to get these two sections together, I want to be able to get a nail into this shelf through this piece, but you can see I've really got to come in from an angle. To make sure that that nail goes through and into this shelf, well, I'm just going to drill back through the other side. Nail, punch, and wipe off glues with a damp cloth. Okay, Rachel, let's get this back on.
Here you go.
Beauty. Mark up shelf positions, pre-drill, and glue. All right, do you want to go? You're nailing.
Oh, good.
Is it flush? Stunning. Then it's varnish time. Let's not forget that sliding door. PVA glue combined with hot glue is a great way to attach the beading. Okay, here it comes. Come and check out the sliding door, Rach.
Oh my gosh, it looks amazing.
It's awesome, isn't it? Hidden
Yes.
compartments are us, I say. And it's got the whole design thing of your white. It's got your timber little features.
Yes.
I think
Oh my
the balance
gosh.
is quite good.
Thank you, it looks so good.
Mate, thanks
I'm
for
so
sharing
excited.
your ideas with me. We're going over to Rachel Lee A. That's Rachel's channel. And we're going to decorate this thing on a desk, make it look exactly as it should.
Yes, I'm so excited.
It's a good start though. These kids wouldn't love to know that something they have made out of timber is being talked about by the whole family every time it comes out and is getting used regularly. Well, my kids would. They're going to do this too. It's pallet coasters. Just when you thought you had seen everything that pallet furniture has to offer, here comes pallet coasters. We're shrinky-dinking the pallet to create something that can hold your drinks. First job is for mum or dad, just measure up your balsa. I've got a 75mm wide piece. I'm dividing it up into 6 equal parts. Now you want a straight edge to run your knife along and cut up strips of balsa wood. It is a hardwood balsa wood, but it's very, very soft. Easily cut with a knife. Your standard coaster, it's roughly 100 by 100 millimetres. So grab your 12 by 3 millimetre balsa wood strips and cut them up into 100 millimetre lengths, about 15 for each coaster. A good tip to stop you fumbling with your tape measure all the time is just to measure 100 millimetres on your bench and lay down some tape, front and end. Gives you a start and a stop point for each piece. You'll have 15 cut out before you know it. Maybe even 1,500, depending on how many kids and cousins you got. Once you have cut up your balsa, call the kids in and start assembling. You're going to need glue, PVA exterior grade. You want to make sure it's exterior because you may get a little bit of water on the coasters and you want to make sure they don't fail when they get wet. The beauty of pallet furniture is that the rougher these things are, the more real they look. To keep your pallet coasters looking their best at the table, coat of varnish or some leftover decking oil will do. Remember to give a thumbs up if you like it, or down if you don't, and subscribe for free regular DIY fun and tips for maintenance at your place. Everyone bangs on about security. Sometimes security can just bite you in the foot because this lock is stuck. You can barely get the key out. Just so happens I have some graphite powder in my pocket. This stuff's perfect because it's a dry lubricant. It doesn't attract dust and grime and all that sort of stuff. So you basically just get a little bit of graphite powder, stick it on your key, and then stick it up to the lock. Give it a little bit of a shake. It's still a bit sticky. Hang on, here we go. Never been so easy. I'm in. No! My thumb got out of the way, but geez, I've bruised the timber. And have a look at this, a bit closer, right? Can you see on the hammer there where the hammer has struck the nail and the nail head has slipped off the side of it? No good. You can see the 2 bob mark that's left in the timber. Ugly. Now what you want to do is rough up the head of this brand new hammer so that it grips the nail. First thing, get it on some concrete and rub away. Just after a couple of runs, you can already see that I'm getting a bit of a brushed stainless steel look on the bottom of the hammer. That is like sandpaper and really grips the head of the nail. And remember, never drive the head of the nail all the way to the surface of the timber because that's just going to have your hammer leave another mark. You want to always finish with a punch. Untangling old Christmas lights is something that I wasn't real keen on doing last year, so this year I'm going to avoid the problem altogether by storing the Christmas lights on an old hose reel. Yep. Just find the end of your lights. Oh, that's a challenge in itself. Where are they? Oh, hello. I'll just start by feeding him into there and winding him up. Just work side to side like you would with a normal hose. It doesn't take very long at all. There's a couple of hundred. There's room for another couple of thousand. How easy is that? 600 fairy lights all rolled up into action, ready to roll out as soon as you are. You will never be frustrated by tangled Christmas lights ever again. Got it? If you have got a garage, chances are that you wish it was a little bit bigger, or at the very least, more organised. And if you've got kids, the available space in your garage is only getting smaller by the year. So, the plan to sort out storage in the garage involves ply. And out of about a quarter of a sheet of this stuff, 19mm ply, I'll be able to make a storage system that is strong, simple, and very good looking, and big enough to sort out at least, well, 6 scooters, skateboards, whatever you got lying around. I'm basically creating a U-shape that I can screw directly to the wall. There's a series of slots in the U at 45 degrees that I can slide the boards, scooters, or whatever straight into. Start by marking up your pieces. Introducing the mobile bench vise, 2 clamps and a block of timber. It holds things steady while you cut rebates with your circular saw. You can get away with butt joints here, but rebates do offer a far stronger and better looking joint. Once you've got your rebates cut, you can start to cut out the slots. Keep in mind that now you've got 2 rebates. They both go against the wall, which means you now have a right and a left piece. So keep that in mind when you're cutting your angle. An 8mm drill bit can be very useful at the corners. Combined with a jigsaw, cutting just to the curve, turn a sharp corner into a circular, softer one. That's all the slots cut, and the boards fit pretty nicely. Looking the goods. Now, give yourself a dollar coin round out of your corners just to boost appearance. Cut out with a jigsaw. A couple of straight shortcuts is very easy, then you can tidy up with your sander. Woo! Sanding can take quite a while. It's probably a good time to get the kids involved when it's their stuff you're storing anyway. Now, once you're happy with the finish, it's just a matter of pre-drilling, gluing, clamps on, and screw your pieces together. For one finished product. When it comes to surfboards, well, the racks are pretty much similar, except they're 450mm wide, and I'm making up 2 T-sections. They can be spread a fair distance apart because, well, your boards are longer than skateboards. I have changed up the angles slightly. I've got a spine on the rack of 75mm, gives plenty of strength, and I've measured down off the top 100mm along the spine. Now that creates the angle for the surfboard to sit at. Slightly elevated, looks pretty good. You will have a new home for 5 surfboards out of half a sheet of ply. Yep. By clamping your pieces together, you can make all your cuts in half the time, and they'll match perfectly. Pre-drill clearance holes in your backing board, then using the old mobile bench vise to hold things steady for you, attach the backing to your rack. Remember to use glue and drill pilot holes. Back to the skateboards. If you're going into a timber stud wall, you're going to need to find a timber stud or something solid to fix to. And something for wetsuits. That's a pretty good result. Now to put up the surfboard rack. Now, in a hollow wall, the pitch of the knock on a wall is a great way of telling whether you've got solid timber behind or not. Ready? Very low pitched. High pitched. That's where I've got solid timber. It's a fair bet you will too, but just to make sure, I always drill a pilot hole to check. Get that thing up on the wall. They are looking good. Of course you can stand boards up. Couple of bike racks to finish up. I did spend extra on those and got ones that can actually fold the bike flat against the wall. Saves a lot more space, and have a look at this. You can near on play cricket in here. I've got half a sheet of ply for the board rack, quarter of a sheet of ply for the skatey rack, The rack for the wetsuits, I picked that up in the council cleanup. And then there's just a bit of board with some dowel sticking out of it for the stand-up paddle. I mean, really, the space I have gained is extraordinary just by taking stuff off the floor and putting it on the walls. It's amazing how much room you can create. If you have got tips and ideas that you might use in your garage, give this a big thumbs up. Oh, the window's stuck. If you got a window that's painted shut, this one looks all right on the inside. Wait right there. Hi, the window is definitely painted shut on the outside. You can see in here where the paint's sticking, down here as well. Now whether it's been painted shut or the window's just stuck to itself over time, doesn't matter. It's still very easy to fix. This is all you need. I've got a block of timber. It's about, well, just a little bit shorter than the window sash. I've also got a scraper. I've got a lump hammer. You could just use any old claw hammer, and a knife. You want to start with the knife. You want to run your knife down the line of where the paint is sticking. Don't cut into the window, that's bad, because what you're going to do is just cut into the window sash. All you're doing is scoring any paint. To avoid touch-up paint later, a great tip for doing this job is to stick a bit of paper next to the window as you're cutting that paint. Can you see? An orange knife's left an orange mark that would have been on the window sash. Okay, here we go. I've got a block of timber, I've got my hammer. I'm just putting that against the window sash only, okay? I don't want it touching the window frame. I'm going to give it a hit. Not too much harder than that. The beauty of a big, thick piece of timber running all the way down that sash is that when you do hit the timber, the force of the impact is spread. Ooh, gosh, it's close. It's really close. The window's moving, but what I think has happened is the paint has stuck to itself inside the frame between the bead and the window sash. Now, that happens nowadays more often than it used to because new paints, acrylics, tend to stick to each other a lot more than the old-fashioned enamels. Enamels dried hard, which was great for things like windows. Acrylics, they're sticky buggers. So what you do is you get your scraper, stick it right in there and just go. Now, if the paint's stuck in there, that'll break that seal. Open sesame! Yeah, that is fantastic. Still a little bit sticky though. What you want to do is grab that scraper, just go down and get any of those dags off the paint that are inside the bead. Once that's feeling a bit smoother, the ultimate in preventative sticking measures, candle wax. Just get this stuff, rub it down either side of that bead. There's one side, there's the other. How easy is that? Wax, hey? It'll help you stick to your surfboard, but sorts your windows right out. Slip, slip. Woo, that was close. Time to install the doorstop. Really simple job, takes no time to do. There's plenty of different kinds to choose from, but most of them are installed fairly much the same way. Now, if your 10-year-old's in a hurry, he's going to turn a little chip like that into a tiling job you don't want real quick. So, get onto it. First thing you want to do is make sure that you're putting this in the right position. So you just hold it down low and open the door. That's about right. Now I can mark that position. Now you notice I'm doing this on the tiled wall as opposed to on the door. You see them on doors sometimes, but most internal doors are hollow core. And a hollow core door really doesn't have the strength to hold up a door stopper like this, especially not if your kids are going to use that stopper as a ride when it's opening and closing. So, once you've got your position, put a little bit of masking tape over that spot and then remark it. Masking tape simply gives you a drill bit, something to grip onto so it doesn't slide across the tiles as you're starting the hole. When drilling into tiles, there's two main things to remember. One is to get the right bit. Be sure to check that the size of the drill bit you're using is the same as the wall plug you've got. Now there's twist bits, which are for timber and metal, or there's masonry bits, which are for things like this, tiles, brickwork, blockwork, anything masonry. The difference is up here at the tip. Number two, make sure that the hammer feature on your drill is off. You see, if you've got the hammer feature on with an old brittle tile, you might crack it entirely, but at the very least, you're going to chip away the glazing before you get into the hole. Start drilling fairly slowly, just to create that hole through the glazing, then you can press a bit harder to finish it off. Now you want to tap in your wall plug gently with your hammer until it's flush with the tiles. Then just use the screw supplied to attach the wall plug. Pretty easy. How good are windows for chucking natural light straight into your home? What they're not so good for is privacy. But what if you like to wash up naked occasionally, or you just don't want next door neighbours peeping into your home? What I want to do is show you how you can combine the beauty of natural light from your windows with privacy. DIY window frosting. Because these are louvered windows, it's pretty easy for me to just take the panes out and work on them flat on the table. If you do need to work on a vertical window that's up in front of you that you can't move, well, that's fine too. This stuff is really forgiving and easy to work with. That's why I like it. First up, you want to cut your pieces to size. It's even got a grid on the back, so really you could be the worst gift wrapper in the world and you still get this right. Just give yourself at least 20 millimetres on all sides, so you've got room in case you have made slight errors. You can move this stuff around. Using some tape on both the backing paper and the film makes it easy to separate the two. Then spray them down with some of the application solution. They got a name for everything. It's just soap and water. Spray that on the glass on both sides of your film to lubricate for easy installation. It's the lubrication that makes it easy. With this stuff wet with the solution, it's just soap and water, you can move the piece around on the glass until you get it exactly where you want it. It's not going to stop until you squeegee out the liquid and the air bubbles that might be caught behind the plastic out to the edge. Don't rush it. There's no hurry. It looks fantastic when you get it done. Once you're happy with the position of the film and you've squeegeed out the air bubbles and the solution from behind it, then you can trim up with a knife around the outside edge, using a straight edge, of course. Oh, look at that. Opaque. It's a fancy word for I can't see through it, but there's light. I like it. All right. Now, it doesn't matter what you like to wear when you wash up. It's completely your business. Here is a great tip for anyone about to use a circular saw that is going to save you heaps of time and give you a great result. It basically involves getting to know your circular saw. First, make sure it's unplugged and then measure the distance from the outside edge of the plate to the far side of your blade. 39 millimetres, that is my magic number. Now, if I want a piece that's 600 millimetres wide all the way through, I simply measure 639 to my magic spot, either end. Then just clamp my straight edge into that position, and with confidence and ease you'll be able to cut sheet material like a machine. Dead straight, that is. As long as you are using the same saw with the same blade, the distance from the plate to the outside of the blade's not going to change. And that way, just by adding my magic number 39 to every piece I cut, I've made DIY life a whole heap easier and faster. G'day and welcome to the shed. I'm a very excited man today because I've written a book. It's called How to Build a Billy Cart and Other Fun Stuff. It's been happening over the past 15 years. I now have 3 children. They have been the subjects or the test pilots for everything that is in here, and I know from experience that it is just full of fun. There's 16 different projects. Let's have a little look. You got toys, backyard games, rainy day activities, and once you've gone past the contents, well, there is a map for how to use the book. Right, you've got the materials you might need, you've got all the tools that you're going to need. Then a little toolkit for kids as well, because it's great to get them involved wherever possible. Throughout the book, where kids are encouraged to get involved, I've put a little note. And wherever possible, I've tried to make this kind of like Lego for grown-ups, so that one piece can easily be seen going into the next. Once you're into it, you'll find at the beginning of each project that there's a toolbox and shopping list. You can just photograph it and use it as a checklist. The box kite, a belter. It'll fly as high as the string will let it. Every project in the book is tried, tested, and heaps of fun. And of course, there is the billy cart. because a picture tells 1,000 words and a moving picture tells even more, I'm going to be doing all these projects on my DIY channel. So you can have a look at the channel, see what you might like to make, then go into the book and get step-by-step instruction on how to do each project. There's 16 projects, plus the book makes 17 gifts. This is a beauty, especially for this Christmas. Have a look at it. It's in all good bookstores across Australia. If you think you might like a copy, give this vid a thumbs up.